Hey guys, Tammy here. And in this video, this is the second part of 5 common myths about attorneys. I gave you 1 and 2 in the last video. If you haven't watched that, go watch it because the rest of this is going to make more sense after you've watched that one. So I'm going to give you tips 3 or myths 3, 4, and 5 today. I might have a little bonus one in my pocket too. But before we hop into this video, let me just say, if you like my content, please hit like on this video. Please subscribe to the channel, share it on social media so that more people can get the help that they're looking for. We all know how gut-wrenching this custody process can be, especially when you're dealing with a narcissistic person. And if you're listening to me, you're probably dealing with a narcissistic person, right? That's a lot of what I talk about on this channel. So let's dive right in. The third common myth about attorneys is that they know more than you do. We think that they know more than we do. And while that's true to an extent, they know more about the court system, right? They know more about procedures. They probably know more about the judge. They know more about how to present things, how to organize the information in a way that is, more palatable for the judge, or that's, easy to understand or whatever. So they do have some advantage there. And I think when we think they know more, that's the part that we're talking about. But the part that they don't know more than you on is as far as what your values and your goals are for your family and how your family has historically functioned leading up to this point, because that is a consideration. And a lot of times we end up working with somebody who doesn't share our values and goals. And so the approaches can be very different depending on how you move through your world. It doesn't necessarily give them an advantage just because they procedurally know more. I tell the story sometimes. Thomas always hated this story, but I suppose it doesn't matter now, right? I can tell it all I want. But I remember one time a few years ago where he had a case and the guy was making cash under the table and just lying about it to Thomas, just straight out lying to Thomas. Thomas had no idea the guy was lying. So they show up at trial and the wife was representing herself, and she shows up and she's got this witness, and this witness testified essentially that he paid husband thousands of dollars in cash for the service that husband provided. And husband's claim to the court up to that point had been, I'm not making any money. I'm not making any money, which is, of course, the story that Thomas presented because he believed the client and thought that was the truth. The wife actually won the entire case, like wiped the floor with Thomas, he always says, but that didn't have anything to do with Thomas's skill set as an attorney or ability to do trial. It had to do with this client was lying through his teeth. And so that's why I always tell you guys, like, look, your conduct is imperative in these situations. If you aren't conducting yourselves well, the best attorney in the world isn't going to be able to pull your fat out of the fire, so to speak. And so your conduct is important. So it's not that they know more than you, it's that they know different things than you. And so Thomas used to always say, like, an attorney is going to know the procedure and all that. They're not going to know your case. They're not going to know your values, your goals, your family life. And then you're going to know your case and your values and goals in your family life, but you're not necessarily going to know the procedures and how to present information. And so that's the part that you have to learn, educate, and, shore up if you're going to be self-represented. If you have an attorney that you're working with, then your job becomes more in filling in the holes in the story of your values, goals, and your family for the attorney so that when they present, they can do that in a very cohesive, overarching story. Okay. The next myth is that they'll do a better job on your case than you will. And this kind of dovetails from the previous point, right? A lot of times attorneys actually have really heavy caseloads, and they are human. They do make errors, dare I say. A lot of times it's funny because clients expect us to, I mean, I'm not an attorney, but working as Thomas's paralegal, clients very often would expect you to not make any errors. And it's sort of like, well, we're both human beings. Like, I'm sorry, this isn't going to go in error free every single time. That just doesn't happen. That's not realistic. But they also, and part of that does come from how tedious all the documents are and also how heavy a caseload that you have to carry. It's kind of funny because people don't always realize the volume of cases it takes for a law firm to be profitable. It's actually quite challenging, the workload. And I know that feels crazy because it's like, what? I pay my attorney hundreds of dollars an hour. Well, yeah, but that hundreds of dollars an hour isn't going into the attorney's pocket. That's going to pay for overhead for, all the equipment and the space and the paper and the supplies and the admin time of the staff and all of that. And I know you get billed like the paralegal's rate and all that kind of stuff, but we still, there's still a lot of downtime where we're doing admin things that aren't actually billable hours. And so you've got all of that overhead rolled in. The attorneys have to pay annual bar dues and they've got education things they have to do, which they have to pay for. And, all these various costs that go into it. And so a solo family law attorney that's just practicing on their own, they will generally have anywhere from 30 to 50 cases at any given time. Now, those cases are at different points, right, of workload. Some of them are, intense and have things going, active court hearings going on, and some are kind of waiting for the next thing or whatever. But generally, you'll have 30 to 50. And in larger firms, it's not unusual for an attorney to be managing 80 to 100 cases. Obviously, 80, that many cases and that many documents going across your desk and that many different fact patterns and all of that, yeah, you're going to make mistakes. And so the advantage that you have on your case is that you're the only one, and you might have to sit down in a room and look stuff up and learn and figure out procedures and all of that, but you're only working on your case and you can have that one singular focus, which gives you an advantage. Because again, the attorney only has that small window of knowledge about your case. They don't have the full picture like you do. So as different scenarios or things come up or the other side says something, you can be, instantly, well, is that true? Is it not true? Did it happen? Did it not happen? Did a piece of it happen, but they're blowing it out of proportion? Whatever it is, that instantaneously. The attorney doesn't know that. The attorney has to go back to you and say, hey, they're saying this. Did this happen? Or tell me about this incident and what all it involved. I think we also tend to think they're a better person than we are in some fashion because of just, law school and getting there and, passing the bar and kind of what it takes to practice law and all that kind of thing. Now, that's kind of funny because in a way, I think a lot of us have negative views of lawyers, right? Like they're just like, not nice people, not good people or whatever. But in a certain kind of way, I think when we say better person, that kind of means like status wise, like they're a more important person or a more significant, we feel intimidated by them, right? I've had clients that say to me, oh, I was with this other attorney and that every time I was always afraid to call the office because they would yell at me every time I called. And I'm thinking, what? Why and what would make that attorney think that they have the right to treat anyone else that way, least of all their client who is paying them? And what I always said to clients is like, look, I work for you. Okay, so you tell me how you want this to go. Now, having said that, I don't think that means that gives you the right to, be mean to me or scream at me or yell at me or any of that kind of thing. But I also shouldn't be doing that to you, right? It's a mutual respect situation, but ultimately I work for you. So I'm going to try to help you accomplish your goals that you are trying to accomplish and not the other way around. I was kind of shocked when I had a client say that to me. But I think the way that we think that they're a better person is kind of that image, right? Of like what we think of like TV wise, sort of when we think of a lawyer, because it's almost like a non-human version, right? But they make mistakes. They get nervous. I've been in court with Thomas and watched somebody sit and their hands tremble and the papers rattling as they're picking them up off of the table because they're so nervous presenting in the courtroom. And that's people that are seasoned, that have done it for a really long time. There are just times that you're nervous. Maybe you didn't know the case as well, or you didn't sleep good last night, or you had an argument with your spouse that morning, or whatever. They get nervous in the same way. A lot of them don't like public speaking, don't like presenting in court. Thomas always said he much preferred to write rather than to try to verbalize in court. And I mean, he learned how to verbalize in court and he did fine at it. He just didn't really love it. It wasn't ever like his thing. I'm more the kind of person that I can really stand up in front of whoever and talk if I know what I'm talking about. If you ask me to speak about, something I know nothing about, I'd probably get really nervous. But if you give me a subject matter that I'm very, very comfortable with, like this, like custody and divorce issues, then yeah, I can stand up in front of a room full of thousands of people and talk about it. No problem. They make mistakes. They get nervous. You know what they also do? They get divorced. They get divorced just like we do. I always think that's an important thing. I always tell clients, like, if you can, I would ask that question. Like, if you had personal experience with divorce, be that, or custody, whatever, it would be that, your parents and you being the child of a custody situation, or you co-parenting with somebody, or, whatever, if you had some kind of personal experience, because I think that when you come at this very, very differently. They have kids that act out and behave poorly and get kicked out of school, or, do drugs when they're older, all these kinds of things. Like, lawyers are human beings, right? Attorneys are human beings. They put their pants on one leg at a time, as does the judge. So nobody's any better than anybody else. You don't need to be intimidated by them or their presence. The last one, I said I might have a little tip of one. The other thing I would say is, like, everybody thinks they're wealthy. And again, they're usually not excessively wealthy. Can you make a good living? You can, if you're willing to work extreme hours. And so if you want any kind of work-life balance, it's really like any other job where, you make enough, you pay your bills, you whatever, you hopefully put a little bit aside for retirement, and like, that's it. There's not anything excessive. We don't have boats and yachts, private jets, and like, you don't have any of that kind of thing. So I think that's the other misconception. So look, the good news is you're as capable of doing this as an attorney is, because you have some advantages in some of these things that I've kind of brought to the forefront in these last couple of videos. So if you'd like to learn more about my coaching services, please go to divorceuniversityonline.com, divorceuniversityonline.com/VIP-coaching. There's a link on that page. You can book a time to speak with my staff and learn more about my coaching services. I would love to support you on this journey. See you guys next time.